He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
Welcome to the Marlow Show. Thanks for joining me. Happy belated Mother's Day to all the mothers in the audience. Busy show today. Tomi Lahren will be here. She is terrific. You will find that out if you have any preconceived notion that she's not terrific. Well, you're wrong. You will find that out momentarily. But first, let's get into a couple of big things that are breaking. So we're in breaking news environment here because we got some major news this morning. First of all, we've got Trump has announced that he has a new deal where he's going to implement most favored nations prescription drug pricing. This is something that is just a unbelievable dunk on the establishment left and everyone who had acted as though this is a Democrat issue. The pharmaceutical companies making too much money. This has been my whole life that a lot of Democrats are pointing out pharmaceutical companies making too much money. Big Pharma is making too much money. We don't like Big Pharma. That was a left-wing issue. And then now Trump, as he always does, he finds the best ideas from both sides. He just takes it over. We've got some footage of him signing the deal. So let me play you some of this, see what this looks like.
The rest of the world's going to have to pay a little bit more, and America's going to pay a lot less. Again, because it's a much smaller population than when you think of the whole world. So basically what we're doing is equalizing. There's a new word that I came up with, which I think is probably the best word. We're going to equalize, where we're all going to pay the same. We're going to pay what Europe's going to pay. We're going to all pay. Now, there may be some countries in dire need, and I would be willing to sacrifice that and help them. But it's called most favored nation. We are going to pay the lowest price there is in the world.
So here's the tension here with the pharmaceutical pricing is that America leads the world in innovation with big pharmaceuticals and biotech. And this is something where quite often we will do a lot of the R&D, a lot of the innovation here, and then we will set up plants all around the world because it's cheaper to do so there. And then what ends up happening is that because we do not have a socialist economy, that the pharmaceutical companies make more money off of Americans. We also have our insurance system where it is people have no idea what they're paying. There's almost no price transparency. People have no idea what the drugs they're taking actually cost to make and the deals that made them so expensive, and the costs are passed off and distributed all over the place. But in the end, America pays a fortune relative to the rest of the world. A lot of the tension is, does any change amount to price controls, which could eventually stymie innovation and maybe keep us more sick? Well, I don't think that's the case necessarily. I think that will be the puzzle. And Trump is already conscious of this because this has come up. Let me play this.
Price controls.
Say it.
How do you respond to the fact that this...
It's not price control. No. What was price control is before. If you want to talk about price control is what they were doing. They were making us pay. They set a price, and they said, here's what we're going to pay, and anything else charge America. Because at that time, they had a very stupid president, and it really went crazy during the last 4 years. And remember this, the Democrats are the ones that allowed this to happen. They were the ones that were the protector of this pricing system. And I think it's going to be very hard. You'll have to ask Democrats, are they going to vote against the one great, big, beautiful deal that's being negotiated now, tax cuts, etc.? We're now on top of the tax cuts and regulation cuts, all the things. Now you're going to say that the price of your medicine is going down by 60, 70, 80%. You're going to vote against it? I think a lot of Democrats are going to be forced to do something that their leaders are going to beg them not to do, and that's vote for the bill. I don't see how they can vote against it. How can they vote against it when drug prices, drugs and pharmaceuticals are going to be down 70, 80%? It's going to be very interesting.
Any of you are watching that, I think Dr. Oz is experimenting with some blonde in his hair. I know I'm going to have to be this guy eventually, but a lot of these older guys here who I play on the show, they do some funky stuff with their hair. Check out Jamie Raskin. Check this out.
The denial of due process is something that runs through everything they're doing. And this is why Donald Trump, he says he doesn't know whether or not he's got to comply with the Constitution. Well, he should know by now because more than 100 courts have entered preliminary injunctions or temporary restraining orders against all of the lawlessness that they've unleashed on the people of America.
Okay, so he's obviously talking about he's talking about Abrego Garcia, due process, all that stuff. But the reason why I highlight this is because if you see his hair, he's clearly got the spray hair color that you put on temporarily to make you look like you're not as balding when you're on TV and stuff. And his hair is just always unbelievable Chia Pet-esque hair from Jamie Raskin. His commentary is also horrible in general. And as we've said on the show over and over again, there is no due process for illegal aliens. It's impossible. It would gum up the courts for hundreds of years. So it's a lie that they just push on MSNBC. But I have to add that Dr. Oz, he dyed his hair blonde. Interesting. All right. Anyway, here's the point. This is not the point here is not to watch Raskin and his ridiculous hairline all day and talk about due process. The point is to talk about whether or not Trump is correct that what we had before is price controls, and I kind of agree with him. It's not really price controls for the U.S. government to try to get better prices on behalf of the American taxpayer. And arguing that we shouldn't do that is a way to get these runaway drug prices where the drug companies can charge a limitless amounts when they're willing to engage in capping prices to some degree and negotiating better widespread deals with other countries. But we're not doing that here. And clearly that's a result of, pharmaceutical company lobbying, things like that, which are very powerful lobbyists. And I'm not saying that they can't advocate on their own behalf, but we have been getting rolled over the past few years. And COVID should have changed that for a lot of people. And I'm sure Trump feels that acutely. Is just the way that COVID vaccine was sold to us was so egregious. It was so over the top. And I will tell you, I am not one of these people like those you see on X, the Everything app, who thinks that the COVID shot is killing all these people and that it didn't save lives. I think it both saved lives and is not causing the vast majority of people who took it to drop dead at where they stand, which is what you would get from social media. I don't think either of those are true, but I will tell you it wasn't nearly as good as the intensity of the salesmanship and the insistence that this needs to be mandatory and you can't play an NBA game or go visit someone in a hospital unless you were up to date on those shots, and to carry around that Orwellian card where you to note when your last boosters were. All of that is just repulsive. It was beneath us as a people. And the fact that Trump is saying, all right, this is the last straw. We're not letting the pharmaceutical companies dictate so much of our lives is just totally reasonable and warranted. And so good for him for doing something that both parties, particularly Democrats, have talked about for so many years, and just saying we're doing it, we're going forward, and that's where we're at. Details are still emerging, but overall, and we'll have them all for you at Breitbart News, but overall, he's directed U.S. Trade Representative and Secretary of Commerce to take action to ensure foreign countries are not engaged in practices that purposefully and unfairly undercut the market price and drive price hikes in the U.S. The whole goal is the rest of the world pays a little bit more, we pay a little bit less. Sounds like a great goal for a U.S. president. He's working to communicate price targets to pharmaceutical manufacturers, not mandates, but targets. And he also wants to have a mechanism with American patients can buy their drugs directly from manufacturers as opposed to having a bunch of middlemen, which will, of course, cut prices down. And the most favored nation practices he just talked about, where we're trying to get the prices as low as it is for anyone on earth. That should be the goal for Americans. It is exactly the role of the president to try to make that happen for us. And trying to just make it so that there's price transparency is another big one, is that the fact that we don't really know how much money that we're spending on the drugs that we take is just unbelievable. You have no idea. There is medicine that I know that members of my family take that is 4 figures a year, and some that is $15 a pop. And it is, we don't know. You don't really think about it because we've built the economy that way. It shouldn't be that way. And I think the radical transparency he's calling for, very welcome. And I'm very open to this and open-minded about it. So good for President Trump. Promises made, promises kept. And stealing the left's best issues are just unbelievably, I just love it. I can't get enough of it. And I'll tell you though, he will take some shots that are just unbelievably hilarious too, as he focuses on drugs. Check him talking about Ozempic. Check this out.
I mean, I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine who's a businessman, very, very, very top guy. Most of you would have heard of him. Highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug. And he called me up and he said, President, he calls me, he used to call me Donald, now he calls me President, so that's nice respect. But he's a rough guy, smart guy, very successful, very rich. I wouldn't even know how we would know this, but because he's got comments. President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London, and I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working. He said, I just paid $88. And in New York, I pay $1,300. What the hell is going on?
Wow, that's good stuff. The fat shot. I think if you get it, I think he's talking about Ozempic, but if you get I think if you get it in the prescription, it's very cheap, and if you get it over the counter, then it's really expensive. But I know some people are taking it on the black market. The fat shot. He tells his friend it's not working. Oh man. That's a riot. He is so funny. He really is. He's really one of the funniest guys. All right, good stuff. Next good stuff. China trade deal. There's a tariff pause going on. I mentioned on Friday's show that we should be getting some of these tariffs kicking in. And so this means we're going to get new freight shipments. Perhaps that the prices might go up, but it might be much more muted than it is. He's trying to rethink what the exact level is. Besson and Trump are optimistic that we're not going to have to totally decouple from China, make it more of a phase thing. I want to decouple, but again, I'm in the position of being a news guy and commentary guy. They might see it as too much of a shock to the system if we totally decouple, and doing 145% tariff, as was the original plan, would essentially be a de facto decoupling, because this would just make it so almost everything would stop entirely. And so they're trying to find a right balance. They're trying to come up with a good approach, and we don't have all the details right now. So I will tell you, though, that the market loves that Trump put a pause on this and put a pause on the new tariffs and this new surge in freight shipments coming in. All that has got the markets absolutely delighted. So we saw a huge bump in the stock market as we went to air here on the show. But we'll still keep giving you new details. But the higher prices in some China-made goods are going to be here to stay. But that's part of the point, because we need to decouple. We need a level of a tax for fentanyl. We need to have some effort to start reshoring as much as humanly possible, and we need to have we got the 10% universal tariffs. We want to have equitable trade. So there's going to be a lot that goes into this, but I'll tell you the slowdown or the pause on the tariffs was very well received. So that's where we're at. Two massive stories to start the day. RFK Jr. is dunking on AOC and Bernie Sanders for Trump taking on Big Pharma better than they ever could. I got such a kick out of last week playing Bernie Sanders justifying why he takes private planes to campaign for nothing. He's totally ineffectual as a leader. He's got nothing done in his entire career other than make money to get houses and sell books. And the fact that the left still reveres him to some degree, he's such a charlatan. More good news. A American Israeli hostage, Eden Alexander, who was tortured by Hamas, handcuffed in a cage. He's been released thanks to Trump's negotiation. So there's going to be a lot of Middle East news this week, but this is the first item. Trump is heading to the Middle East right now. I don't even know if that's super public, but I'm aware of it because I'm trying to talk to some people who are over there. And he's out there. He'll be negotiating with a bunch of different people for various deals, both, I think, economic and peace related. And the last American hostage getting released is terrific news, great news. Another victory from Trump. More promises made, promises kept. Also in the news today, that Trump has confirmed that Qatar, or Qatar, as is pronounced online, is giving the U.S. a luxury Boeing jet free of charge. Trump has said that Boeing is late on getting Air Force One together. So he was supposed to have 747 to replace the 40-year-old Air Force One, and Boeing is not getting the job done quick enough. So Trump has truth bombed out that the Defense Department's getting a gift free of charge from Qatar. It is going to be a publicly transparent transaction. Crooked Democrats are very upset about this, but anyone can do this. And I think it kind of puts Boeing on notice to speed up the process. Of course, there are concerns that some of it could be bugged somehow. I would hope that we'd have the ability to figure that out. I don't know, but it's odd. It's odd to me. I trust Trump on this stuff. It's kind of minor, but I do know that Qatar is trying to buy up a lot of influence in America. They're trying to spread a lot of money around to try to be influential, and they're traditionally have not been a great country, I will say. A lot of oppression over there and a lot of values that we don't share here in the liberal West. But if they want to play ball and there could be a negotiation made, it's all are the deal stuff. So I'll be watching cautiously. I'm not overly alarmed yet, but certainly worth keeping an eye out for that. All right, over at Breitbart.com, tons of great news that I won't dwell on too much. I got some updates as we start heading into campaign season. Ken Paxton apparently has a double-digit lead over John Cornyn in what could be a major improvement for MAGA over there, or MAGA, if you would prefer MAGA. Tomi prefers MAGA. We're going to talk to her in a second. Over in Texas, we got more details on the Newark mayor being arrested and Democrats trying to interfere. We had that woman that's mega viral for us online over the weekend, Congresswoman McIver, who came in, started body slamming all of the ICE agents who were trying to arrest the mayor and just totally pushing her weight around, literally getting actually violent congressperson. So all that for you over at Breitbart.com. But I will leave it there for now, and we'll get into it with Tomi, and more news to come. It's going to be a big week of news. A lot of good stuff on the entertainment front, the Hollywood front, a lot of celebrities melting down. So that's why I always recommend Breitbart.com and our Breitbart Fight Club if you need more content. All right, let's get into it with Tomi Lahren. You're starting to feel those aches and pains. You know the ones. Everyday stiffness. When you wake up in the morning, when you come home from work, maybe you just got off the golf course, you've been playing with your kids or grandkids. Well, you're not alone. The truth is, when we get older, we're at an increased risk for bone loss, joint pain, and the injuries that can slow us down or take us out of the game completely. No thanks. But I got some good news for you. You don't have to accept that pain or weak bones is just part of getting older. The Juvent Micro Impact Platform is FDA registered and clinically backed to help keep you strong and mobile. In just minutes a day, Juvent delivers gentle, targeted micro impacts that support bone strength and joint comfort, all without pills or downtime. Thousands are finding relief every single day, and now it's your turn. Fewer aches, better mobility, incredible recovery, and more freedom to do the things that you love, and it's basically zero risk. Try Juvent for 6 weeks, and if you don't feel the difference, get your money back. Get $300 off with code MARLOW at checkout. That's MARLOW. Take control of your mobility, stay independent, and don't let pain call the shots. Go to juvent.com, that's JUVENT.com/Marlow. Use code MARLOW at checkout and get an exclusive $300 off. Take the steps today that could change your life. All right, really cool guest today on the Alex Marlow Show. The one and only Tomi Lahren is here, Outkick Host. It's her show. You can get it. It's 1 p.m. Eastern. Tomi, is that when it airs?
Yes,
and it's
live
also
at 1 p.m. Eastern.
1 p.m. Eastern every weekday, and I'm on quite a bit, and she actually lets you finish a sentence, which is nice, prepares a lot, make sure all the topics are really sharp, and it's great to talk to you. It's interesting because you're very young, but still becoming I would say someone who has been in the space through a lot of iterations of conservative new media. And I kind of want to get some of your perspective on that. I felt like just one day I woke up and you were just going viral every night on One American News, giving these rants that were very emphatic. And you have this ability to speak declaratively, which a lot of people are afraid to do that. But there's always a lot of actual intellect behind it, which has been really fun to watch. But take me through your journey, because I don't think anyone's got your exact, I think, narrative, Tomi.
Well, for me, I grew up in South Dakota. So I grew up in a conservative place. Then I went to school in Las Vegas, and being in Las Vegas was kind of the first time that I was aware of so many opinions that were obviously not all conservative. And I learned a lot. I met a lot of different people that you don't really get exposed to living in South Dakota, a very conservative, small place. So for me, also being proud of my conservatism, that wasn't weird for me to talk about conservative politics. And that was a time when you could still do that, I guess.
Sure.
But, it was kind of transitioning out of the time where that became taboo. You don't talk about politics. But when you're in college, I think you all should. But I left there. I went to One American News when I was 21. I did a show there. Then I went to The Blaze. Then I came here to Fox. And I think this is my 8th year at Fox. So,
wow.
It's been a lot of different places, but for me, I understood early on that conservatives had to get into new media and into the digital space and into streaming. And now everybody has a podcast. But back when I started doing it, people didn't really have podcasts.
Yes.
It was either you were on Fox News or you were writing for an outlet, but there really wasn't a new media aspect to conservative politics. And so I feel like maybe I was one of the people that jump-started that a little bit. I certainly had most of my audience online, an online audience that I built. So I think now it's a pretty commonplace, which I'm happy about. I'm happy that there are so many conservatives that are getting in this space, and I think it's transformative for the movement, quite honestly.
Yeah, no, and it was very good. I was thinking about this because I was fat and happy editing Breitbart for all these years, and I could just put up a headline and I could change conversations, and I felt very satisfied with that as my life for a while. And then as the space has gotten, I think, more diversified and people are getting their news from different places, I felt compelled to podcast. And I think that I really probably should have started doing this 10 years ago. I had a podcast in college, so this was 17 years ago, but I didn't stick with it. And I should have, obviously. And I've talked to the audience a lot about how I recommended Andrew Breitbart start a podcast business. And he didn't think it was a bad idea. He just wasn't focused on it at the moment. And we probably missed out on like $1 billion not doing it. So that was probably not smart. And you probably would be on my network instead of on Outkick and on Fox if that was the case. But I want to go back to when you started at One American News, because I would have loved to have interviewed you at the time, because I would want to know what you thought as a person, because you're going mega viral and everyone's listening to what you have to say. Half the comments are incredibly positive, half are incredibly negative. How did you feel as a human being watching that much reaction to yourself? Was it incredibly exciting, just pure elation and joy? Were there frustrating moments? What was it like for you to be a young person just thrown into that lion's den?
Yeah, well, when I started out, obviously no one had ever heard of me. I just graduated from college and started a show at One America in San Diego. So it was a different atmosphere for me. But I feel like I kind of grew up in it because I was only 21 at the time. So, when people are most worried about what people think about them, I was already thrust into the media space, and it didn't bother me. And it really still doesn't bother me. Yeah. It bothers me far more when conservatives attack me than when liberals attack me. I think it's a sport when liberals attack me. It's far more, I guess, of a personal feeling when the conservatives start coming at you, but I'm so used to that as well. A lot of my viral moments came when I was at The Blaze, and that's when, obviously, the election of Donald Trump was happening. That's when I had my Kaepernick moments, and that was, to me, a time where we were discussing race more than ever before, and we were discussing new media more than ever before. And I would say things that would ruffle people's feathers, but it wasn't something that they hadn't thought or they hadn't heard. They hadn't heard it from somebody like me in such a definitive and direct way. And some people would say aggressive or whatever, but people just were not used to hearing someone that looked like me say the things that I was saying so definitively and without apology and without walking them back, that I think it startled people, but it also started a conversation. And now we have a lot of conversations, which I'm happy about. But back then, you kind of had to stay in your lane, and I never did. So that's probably why I pissed a lot of people off.
So I want to ask about the declarative nature of your stances, which is this is what works. Is I know this is someone who coaches people in media as a editor and as a manager far more. I've spent far more time doing that than being a public out-facing person myself. That's what works. You have to state the opinion, and that is what gets people's attention and gets people to react. Have you always been that way? Has it been like that in your personal life, or is it an intentional thing? Like if we were hanging out and we were talking about going to lunch, like would you declaratively state, I would like to go here, or is it the same thing?
Well, I think my husband will tell you that, once I make my mind up about something, I'm kind of immovable on that point. But for me, I guess the way that I personally interact with people, when people don't know me on a personal level, they think that I'm always just punchy out the gate, aggressive, this, that. In my personal life, I really don't think I'm like that at all. I'm actually much more subdued. And it's not because people say, oh, well, this is an act. No, it's just I'm very passionate about what I talk about, right?
Yeah.
So politics for me, that is my sport. That's what I am most passionate about. So if people are passionate about music or they're passionate about sports or what have you, this is what I'm passionate about. So when I'm very declarative about illegal immigration, or even when I'm on maybe the other side of conservatives, when I'm talking about not going down the rabbit hole of making sure that we're so dedicated to, pro-life absolutism that we lose elections, I'm very declarative about that as well, because I think about this stuff all the time. And I don't say something until I have a pretty definitive opinion on it. So maybe that's why it comes out so aggressively, I guess. But it's because it really does come from a place of I've thought about this a lot. And I've arrived at this after a lot of thought.
Yeah, well, and that's one thing that I think people, if they watch you for 20 minutes, they understand this, but you do a lot of homework. So you read, you clearly curate and write a lot of the show yourself. You're not looking just to do hair and makeup and talk. You're trying to be a thought leader. Well, give me a day to day, because you must be constantly consuming everything.
I think we all have to constantly consume everything. And right now there's so much to consume. I mean, today it's like, if you take a weekend off, you're really far behind.
Way behind, yeah.
Up to you, because you're not going to know what's going on. I think the way that X or Twitter or whatever is curated now, I think that that's really great for our business, because the viral moments, you can stay on top of them really easily. You don't necessarily have to go to a bunch of different outlets, but
it is true. You do kind of just pull up the app one time and like the top 7 things are just right there, and it does work that way.
And you can see what everybody's really fired up about. I like to kind of hone in on what people are really fired up about and what people are talking about most, because that's what drives the conversation, right? But for me right now, this illegal immigration, meltdown that the left is having is a gift to people who create content. Sure. Because they're so ridiculous. And it's like, you don't have to stretch. You don't have to try to come up with something creative. It's like, just watch them. And you have your moment there, and they're going viral every day for how stupid they are. And it's just easy to sit back and kind of poke fun at it. But yeah, that's the day-to-day. For me, I love to write. I'm a writer. I know you're a writer. I write this whole show that I do, and I'm very passionate about it. And although people are used to my hot take clips, I kind of pride myself in being sarcastic and poking fun at things, because I think that we should make light of things that are going on to the extent that we can. But right now, I mean, this administration is just a gift to those of us who talk about this kind of thing for a living.
Yeah, it really is. And I want to go there in the conversation about how I want to talk about how both sides are doing right now. And I think the Democrats are doing so poorly. And I think that does help us a lot. It buys us a lot of time. But the last thought, just sort of big picture media, as being a media person, what are trends? Tell me about some trends that you're observing that you're liking, or maybe some things that you're not liking. Like for me, one thing that I'm reacting to is I'm seeing more of a tribalism on the right, which I find to be kind of lame and boring, which is and will ultimately oppress free thought if we keep going down that road. That's just something that I've observed. But is there anything that you're seeing online that you really like that's new? Maybe it's what you just observed about X, or anything that you dislike a little bit.
Yeah, so I'll say this about the conservative space. I'm glad that there are so many conservatives getting into this and having opinions and having a platform. And you can really create a platform out of nothing. And if people like what you're saying, you can build it into something really important and really meaningful. And I think that that's great for our space. Yeah. On the flip side of that, there are people who are seeking to get into this because they either want to go viral or, they want to be paid to do it or what have you. And for me, obviously I have the luxury of working at a network and then also podcasting. So I'm not in that space where I'm trying to, I guess they call that algorithm farming, or they're trying to put something out to make money off the ad revenue. I don't do that because that's not my business model, right? That's not how I make my money. So I think that there's some of that, though, where you're saying things maybe you don't necessarily even agree with, or you don't even understand because you're doing it for the clicks or the dollars. And that's the downside of everybody having a platform and everybody being able to make money in this space, I would say. So I trust and respect people's opinions far more when I know that they're not being paid to have that specific opinion. I'm paid for my opinions, but I am not paid to have a specific opinion. Yeah. And to me, the fact that the left and the right at different times don't like what I'm saying, I think that goes back to just being authentic. And that's how you last in this business. And I think that's what will weed out those who are maybe in it for, I wouldn't say the wrong reasons, but maybe motivated by the wrong things.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting to me is that and maybe that's why I think you and I have hit it off a little bit, is that I feel like your viewpoint is what drew me to conservative talk radio and conservative columnists that I read growing up, which was, it did feel like their institutions and their networks behind them were saying, you just give the best opinion you can. We're trusting you to do the research. We're trusting you to defend yourself and be brave about it. And it does feel like a little bit of the online culture now is a lot of people trying to say as loudly as possible the things that they know will go viral. And I think that is a trap. And I don't know. I guess my follow-up to that is, do you feel like that's something that's a real problem, or it's something that's just something fun in one online ecosystem? Because I don't know if it really is a problem. I just know that I find it very boring when I turn on the X app, and which is the everything app, by the way. And that's what I've been told. And then it feels like everyone's just sharing the same opinion that is, going to be just catnip for conservative audiences.
Yeah, I think anytime you put something out and you don't fully understand it and you haven't fully developed your own opinion and you just feel like that's the opinion that you should have, I think that you sacrifice a lot of integrity. Mm-hmm. And I think that your followers over time will catch on to that.
I think so too.
What I mean by that is this. I'm a Trump supporter. I was MAGA before a lot of these other people were MAGA, right? Back when I was at the Blaze and I was the only person in the building that was MAGA, when I was actually lambasted by my coworkers for being MAGA. But on that same hand, I can call out when I don't agree with something, or I can say, hey, I'm not quite sure about this. Let me dig in. I'm not just going to be like, how do I defend the administration today? Because I'm not employed by the administration. I understand if you're employed by the administration, that's kind of your job. But when you're in media, I think you're far more trusted if you can call things out as you see them. And that's what I've always done. And it angers people sometimes. They question your loyalty, but my loyalty isn't to one man or one administration. My loyalty is to what I think is best for this country.
Right.
People can tell that if they listen to you for long enough.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why it's nice to be able to have a longer form conversation. With the left can't do, the right can do that very well. So I'm going to get your take on both sides, big picture of the political aisle right now. And let's start with the Trump agenda, conservative agenda. How do you think Trump's doing? Give me your thoughts on first 100 days. Give me your thoughts on the issues we're focused on right now.
Well, I'll tell you, obviously, immigration's a big one for me. And I feel, and I've said it before, if Trump does nothing else in these 4 years beyond mass deportations and an overhaul of our immigration system, and by immigration system, I mean just enforce the laws that are already on the books, even just that, I think he'll go down as one of the greatest presidents in history, certainly in my lifetime. I'm a big immigration person. I'm a hawk on that issue. So that to me is first and foremost. And I love what they're doing. And it's happening here in Tennessee. Our mayor is crying about it. Oh no, they're coming and doing ICE raids of people that are here illegally, people that have committed crimes. They're being rounded up. I cry no tears. I'm sorry. Maybe that makes me cold-hearted. Don't care. So I think on that point, A+. Now, what we're seeing with this tariff stuff, I understand that people were shaky. Hold on,
before you do tariffs, because I got a clip of the Nashville mayor talking about this stuff. Missy, are we good to play this? Let me make sure that I got this.
This is a tough moment, and I am heartbroken that today many of our neighbors in Nashville are experiencing fear over family separation rather than the safety we all deserve. The trauma inflicted on families is long-lasting.
First of all, if you guys are watching this, then you're missing out, because Tomi said always looks really amazing. But also, I got to tell you, I've worn a bold tie in the past. This thing is absurd. This is something like what my 4-year-old would pick out and say, this is a tie to wear. So Tomi, you have to tell me all about this guy.
This is long lasting, and I'm doing everything in my power consistent with applicable law to protect anyone who calls Nashville home. What's clear today is that people who do not share our values of safety and community have the authority to cause deep community harms. Immigration enforcement is a federal responsibility. MMPD officers are not ICE. What's clear is that federal and state authorities are intent on enforcing immigration law. Their approach is not our understanding of what a Nashville for all of us looks like, and we're grateful to our community partners who make all of our residents feel welcome.
All right, so you got to give me this guy's deal, but what is going on with the just acting like it's such a pain to be here and actually do your job? I mean, imagine if anyone on my team showed up and acted like that at work editing a website, that I would just be beside myself. Like, what's wrong with you? Wake up.
So I'll tell you what, I moved to Nashville in 2020 at the height of COVID from LA. And when I got here, I thought Tennessee was going to be a safe haven for freedom. But I moved to Nashville, which is one of the few blue dots in a very red state.
Right.
But when I got here, I was shocked to discover that they had a lot of the same COVID protocols that I left in LA. And so I started sounding the alarm back when we had who I called John Chicken Cooper, the mayor. I started sounding the alarm to people in Nashville, like, hey, do you guys realize that this is tyranny? This is Tennessee. What the hell is this with the mask mandates and the curfews? And, you know, I had friends who were arrested for having more than 8 people in their home. So there's a deeper understanding here that Nashville and Tennessee, they might exist, but Nashville is so far from what the rest of Tennessee believes in many cases. COVID was one, this is another. So we got rid of Mayor John Chicken Cooper, and then we got this Freddie guy, who's probably even worse.
Freddie
right?
O'Connell, yeah.
Freddie O'Connell,
just
right?
a delight.
So what a lightweight, first of all, what an embarrassment. This is not, if you look at the rest of Tennessee, this is not indicative of what Tennessee looks, sounds like, feels like, acts like. But this is Nashville, so we are a cultural beacon. But I'll tell you what, Alex, really angers me about this, beyond just his whole demeanor and what he's saying. Nashville is a tourist city. In fact, we are the bachelorette capital of the world. Do you know how many young, vulnerable women come to this town to celebrate their bachelorette parties or any other parties? And do you know how many young women, if not for ICE and the agents that are out there getting the worst of the worst off the streets, that are criminal, illegal aliens, Tren de Aragua, MS-13 members, those that are preying upon the tourists that come to Nashville to have a good time? So it bothers me when he says that the community's in fear. The community is in fear when you have illegal aliens roaming the streets that are the immigration law is not being enforced. That's what puts our city in danger, not ICE agents coming enforcing federal law. So he's wrong on every point here. The state of Tennessee supports what's going on. There are going to be loudmouths in Nashville that cry their tears. But at the end of the day, they also want Nashville to be a safe and secure place, even if their bleeding hearts don't allow them to articulate that.
So do you feel like that the citizens will learn their lesson? Because I'm an LA guy. I was born and raised in LA. And we just moved back just north of LA for my wife's work. And it is, we found a conservative area. So day-to-day life is great. Tax season is horrible. But if, we want to eat and shop, we'll go down to the left-wing areas because they have better food and shopping, sadly. And then you are constantly reminded of that the people who run the place are crazy because they keep voting for the lawlessness. And even though a lot of them will tell you privately, oh, yeah, we get it now. We understand what you've been saying for all these years. The lawlessness is not working for us and for our families. But they still don't. I don't honestly think we're going to fix the way we vote. I hope the city of LA proves me wrong eventually, but I don't think we will. Do you feel like that's the case in Nashville? Or do you feel like you've got some hope still?
The thing about Nashville is that Nashvillians are so protected by being in a red state. It's kind of like the way Austin, Texas is, for example.
Yeah.
They pride themselves on being so inclusive and they're liberals and they're artsy-fartsy and all of this, but they exist in a red state that's got the tax policies and other policies that keep them safe and that keep more money in their pockets. But that allows them to be this liberal, artistic, whatever. In Nashville is a town of artists, obviously. We've got a lot of people that are here because of art and because of music, and I understand that. So I don't think that Nashville is ever going to vote for a Republican, but the state of Tennessee is reliably red. So at least in that, we can, be happy for at least that point. We've got a governor who I think could be much tougher, but it's still a red state. And so that's why Nashville and Memphis and other places, that's why they get to express their liberalism, because they're protected by living in a very red state.
Yeah, interesting, especially since more Californians are moving out there also doesn't help you guys a lot. I mean, we're just nonstop moving to Nashville. But I gotta say, you might have the best combo of senators, the most in terms of ranking 1 and 2. Taken in total with Haggerty and Blackburn. It's pretty good. Pretty good group. So you guys got some positive stuff there. Okay, so you're going to talk about trade. We're back on the Republican agenda. Yeah. You're going to go to trade. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think initially a lot of us that were, obviously jolted by change were saying trust the process. And I believe that, and I believe the process is playing out wonderfully. And I think we have to continue to trust that process. And I think that it's really wise for the administration now to roll out these, maybe you consider them small victories, but they're small victories that are going to get us down the pathway to large victories. And I think that announcing this last week with the UK, now this kind of interim deal with China, I think it's all positive movement. And I think it allows people to trust the process and to kind of calm down. Don't react every time the market reacts. This is for a greater purpose that's going to be transformative. So I'm very happy with it. And I think just, even over the last several days, this president has a lot to brag about. And I trust the process. I trust this administration. I think there are going to be bumps along the way. But overall, I think promises made, promises kept. Everything he said he was going to do, he's doing. Yeah,
he seems like it. And it feels like, for me, and I know we've discussed some of this on your show, but for me, he's getting an A+ just on the basis of border crossings going basically to zero illegally and the decoupling from China process that we needed to start. And we're moving as quickly as humanly possible on that. Everything else is gravy to me, and there's a lot of gravy. But it does feel like, again, on X, the Everything app, that you would think that, maybe he's doing some stuff wrong and he's maybe not doing enough deportations. Is there any pain points that you're afraid of looking down the field that if he doesn't sharpen his blade a little bit, then we could have some problems?
I really don't see anything that stands out to me necessarily. Yeah. And, for me, like during administration 1, I did not like the First Step Act. And I was very vocal about that. Let people out. That wasn't me. I wasn't like, oh, Trump did it, so it's okay. I was like, I don't like this. I could see this going very wrong. There hasn't been a moment like that for me yet. And there very well could be. But at least as of now, everything that I voted for and millions of other Americans voted for, that's what he's doing. And he's doing it with rapid speed. And I think that's also important. He realizes his time to do these things are limited. So I like what I'm seeing so far, honestly. And I think people wanted something to be done. And this is a president that's going to do something. And there's going to be times where maybe it doesn't work out perfectly. But I don't think status quo was working. So I think try something. And he's trying things. And they might be unconventional. But I think if there's ever anybody to do it, it's Donald Trump. So I'm happy so far. I don't see any red flags yet. There could be some along the way. There could be some pulls in some more liberal directions that I don't like. But right now, I think we're steadfast and resolute, and I like it.
And that's saying something, because I know you are good about making sure that you're not sticking with the tribe, and you're good at criticizing when people deserve it, when you call them out when you see it. So that's good. Okay. All right. Here's a fun one. Let's go with the Democrats, because I can't help but have a blast with everything they're doing. I got to say, I thought some of it, maybe they were just here for our amusement, but Kamala Harris reminded us that Jasmine Crockett's one of the leaders of the party. She said so herself. It's they couldn't be more lost. And now they're just taken to discussing whether or not they had called out Biden's mental decline quick enough, which everyone knew Biden was in mental decline. Now they're talking about Fetterman's mental decline, which again, another one we all knew Fetterman is not the sharpest tool, even though he is somehow more likable than the rest of the Democrats. We know he's not the world's most brilliant guy. Oh, what do they got? They don't seem to have anything. What happens when a culture starts trading truth for comfort? Live Not by Lies is a bold new docuseries by Angel Studios. It uncovers how soft totalitarianism is quietly taking root in the West through censorship, digital surveillance, and the erosion of free thought. Inspired by Rod Dreher's best-selling book, the series features firsthand accounts from survivors of communism who recognize the warning signs because they lived through them themselves. The stories are raw, deeply moving, and they're drawing parallels between yesterday's totalitarian regimes and today's cultural climate. This isn't just about history. This is about right now and what we risk if we stay silent. Live Not by Lies is a challenge to every viewer to reject comfort at the expense of conscience and to stand firm in faith, family, and freedom. Streaming now on Angel Guild. Join today by visiting angel.com/Marlow. That's angel.com/Marlow.
They don't. And, before this week and the evolution with the trade deal announcements and the big moving parts of the weekend that I think were fantastic. I was a little bit worried about the economy because it's like, oh, listen, people are, they're going to get restless because they want things to be done immediately. It doesn't work that way. We know that, but a lot of Americans, expected things and prices to come down quicker. So I was like, oh, if Democrats want to find their sweet spot, if they just really, really hammer the economy, they can make that point. And it might not be factually accurate, and it might be just a moment in time where they make a point, but at least it would be a point to be made. But they're not going down that road at all, Alex. It's so bizarre. Like, these people, I've never thought Democrats were stupid. Right now, I actually think they're stupid, because going down this route, Trump has his best numbers when it comes to immigration. And you guys are really going down the route of, let's try to stage an insurrection at an ICE detention facility. That's really where you're going to do, right? Like, you think that plays well to swing state and independent voters. It doesn't. But that's where they're going, because I think that's the only air they can get in the room, in Donald Trump's room, is just to scream loudly about illegal immigration. And it's worked for them before. They changed public sentiment before, and they got Trump to back off,
yes,
or at least
right.
Republicans to back off. I don't think it's working this time.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And they are trying, but it doesn't seem like it has the same momentum. I feel like people's whole mindset has changed on this. We were just looking at a clip from Keir Starmer in the UK saying that immigration's a problem, and he's a hard left guy, and that people need to speak English. And just like, whoa, this would have been ridiculous for anyone on the left. 10 years ago would have been impossible. Not a single person in the Western world on the left would say that. And now, left-wing prime minister of the UK saying it, it shows you things have changed. But one thing, and this is a connection with Outkick, where you guys do a lot of sports coverage over there. I'm curious if the woke moment's over, because sometimes it feels like it's over. And then you see stuff like, here's Chris Murphy from Connecticut, the senator, and him talking about trans athletes with, of all places, on a New York Times podcast with Ross Douthat. Check this out.
I don't have any fear of transgender athletes participating in sports, but
wait, just so you don't have any fear of it. Do you think it's if you had a daughter competing against a biological male, would you find it unfair?
I don't have girls, right? So I necessarily can't, right? I can't put myself in that position.
Have some empathy, right, for those of us who do, right? So would you find it unfair?
I mean, I've talked to lots of parents of girls in Connecticut who do not think it's unfair, and who think that the benefits that those athletes get from being part of a team is important, and they don't mind or feel threatened by the competition. I think everybody can come to their own conclusion, but your conclusion is the official line of liberalism right now. It's you're saying you don't. Yes, my conclusion is that I would support those athletes being able to participate in my community, right? In my community, but I would not substitute my judgment and my community's judgment for another community's judgment.
I let it roll all the way out because Douthat does a great job, and I'm not a super fan of his, but he just got him to completely walk the plank all the way to the alligators on that. Tommy, give me a reaction.
I think there's a memo that went out to any Democrat that was going to question men and women's sports. It's like, you cannot cross that line. We all must in unison try to convince people that this is normal. And every Tuesday I have Liberal Tuesday. I have a liberal on, and obviously I'm still asking about it.
Great.
And they get uncomfortable. A lot of them get uncomfortable. They squirm because they don't want to toe the line. But someone told them that they had to, and it's almost like cult-like unison. They have to be like, oh no, a trans woman is a woman. Oh no, actually people aren't really upset about this. And athletics have to be open to everyone, and they all have to just march in line with this. And it's so stupid. But if they want to keep doing it, I say let them do it.
Yeah.
And I feel badly for the girls that are in these liberal states that don't have somebody at the local or state level standing up for them. I really do. But then part of me is also like, listen, if you guys keep voting this way, you keep voting for these Democrats who are not standing up for your girls, like maybe you reap what you sow. So there you are.
Yeah, so and you guys had some big reporting on this at Outkick about Nike doing a study on trans. I want you to break down what Nike's up to, because for whatever reason, this is a hill the left is going to die on. As I've said, I'm sure I've said this exact line on your show because I've said it enough places. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're going to be happy until every women's swim and track meet in America has only men in the podium. Then they'll be done. It won't be until that point where they will stop. But tell me about the work you guys are doing over there.
Yeah, well, long live the patriarchy. I guess that's the new official tagline of the Democrat Party, which is really wild to me because I heard so many Democrats tell me for years, like, down with the patriarchy. But I think even Taylor Swift wanted to go down with the patriarchy. It's weird to me. Complete reversal there. I guess we're the feminist party now. But anyway, this Nike story, right? So Nike has also not been forthright about this. So Outkick has asked relentlessly for a clear answer on this. We still have not gotten one. So now, for legal purposes, we always have to say allegedly, allegedly. Well, allegedly, sure. Nike is funding a study, or helped fund a study, which basically, in essence, would debilitate young boys. Puberty blockers, hormone therapy, gender affirming care, you name it. Basically debilitate the physicality of boys at a young age and say, okay, well, if we do this at such a young age, then they won't have a competitive advantage. So all of this to say, essentially trying to rationalize or legitimize men competing against women is to say, well, maybe if we can show that by manipulating their bodies, they don't have as much of an advantage, maybe we can make an excuse for men competing in women's sports. That's what this is in essence. And if true, if Nike really is a part of funding this, I don't know how anyone can support that company. And they need to be forthright with their consumers and their customers about it, because that's, to me, that's abusive. That goes beyond just liberalism, wokeism. That's abusive.
You know, it's interesting because the last straw for me was the Black Lives Matter black squares. Once I started to see all these corporations pander with the black squares, I really started to take personally boycotting things seriously, even if though I didn't even take it to my audience all the time. And I've been on radio for a long time, and it was more like a personal thing that I couldn't look at myself in the mirror if I was using certain products. But a lot of bad companies, I was willing to at least use the stuff I already bought and just know I'm not going to buy any more. But if I bought, I'm not going to throw it out. Nike was the one company where I'd seen enough. All my Nike stuff went in the trash. And I'll tell you, I've shared this with the audience before. When I was growing up, I loved Nike shoes. I couldn't always afford them as many as I wanted, and every once in a while, but rarely. And they fit my feet perfectly, which is very inconvenient because I finally got something and it was as good as I'd imagined. And their wokeness is so despicable that I physically take the Nike stuff, if I ever spot anything in the house, and I put it in the garbage can at that level. I don't see how you could be a conservative and try to be a conservative thought leader, tastemaker, and be tolerant of Nike. I just don't see it at all.
Yeah, I don't either. And I'm not one of those people either that's like performative and like, I'm going to throw this away. It's like, I spent my money on it. Like, I'm not going to throw it away. But
that's my exception.
Point, yeah, to this point too, and this similar to me with Bud Light. I know Bud Light's really trying to right the wrongs there. They never actually came out and apologized, which is what I actually wanted them to do. Just come out and apologize. But for me, I was never really a super fan of Nike, so it wasn't hard for me. Yeah. I'm actually not a fan of Bud Light either. But if I go to a lot of baseball games because my husband's a baseball coach, and there are certain stadiums and certain fields where they really only have Bud Light products, and I won't. Like, I don't even like IPAs, but I will drink the IPA, the local IPA, rather than drink Bud Light because I just can't do it anymore. I just can't. I don't want to be seen with it. I don't support it. What they did to me is so egregious. And what Nike, if in fact this is true and they have not been forthright about it, I think that's got to be the straw that breaks a lot of camels' backs there, because it's pretty bad.
Well, great reporting, and you guys should keep up the good work over there. Outkick.com for Tomi's stuff. Tomi, I know we could go another hour and a half, but I don't want to do that because I'd like for you to come back one day soon. And you do a terrific job with your show. Where would you like for people to go if they want to support you online?
Outkick.com, of course, live 1 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. We're also simulcasting on FoxNews.com, Fox Nation, and of course, anywhere on social media. And Alex, you always have come in clutch for me in the biggest moments to discuss the biggest political news. And I always really, I trust your opinion, and I know that it's always so meaningful. And so I always appreciate you taking the time to do my show. And I hope to have you on my show soon. And I will come back here anytime. I really love the work that you guys, of course, do at Breitbart. I mean, thank you. You guys are a leading example for a lot of us in conservative media.
Thank you. Well, we're working hard, and I couldn't appreciate the kind words any more than that. That'll be today's show. Thanks to our producer, Misty, and all of you in the audience. Talk to you tomorrow.